This is a little story about how to feed a baby bird, or how to raise a baby bird, or even save a baby bird. This particular one fell out of a nest that the birds built on top of a little structure that I have. And the bird fell in the pathway there. And the dog, fortunately the dog isn't the problem, but my evil cat is the problem. Though I love her, but she killed one bird, and this one I decided to bring in and raise. The other ones were still doing okay up in their nest. And so I brought it in and read on the internet that you can actually feed the bird cat food. Cat food is really high in protein, and the little baby bird needs a lot of protein, more than dog food would have. There's my cat. And you want to grind it up, either in a blender or food processor, or get it into a powdered form, and then add water to it and kind of stir it around, making like a pudding kind of consistency. Really important that it's very smooth, especially when the bird is really small. When it gets bigger, you can feed it, you can just soak the food in water until it gets totally mushy. It takes, sometimes up to 10 minutes. And there I just threw a little kelp, basically seaweed capsule. I just added that in there, but not necessary. And you want to grind it up, like I said, really fine. You don't want the little bird to choke on anything. Even though the mother and father are feeding the little birds, insects, which are not fine, but they are kind of softer. And the parents also do, make sure that they're not moving or squirming around. But I like to grind this up nice and fine. And it's a good source. I mean, my food that I feed my cat has lamb and salmon and all different kinds of animals. I mean, it's just going to be protein building blocks that this little creature needs to survive. So at first I use a small little eyedropper and just feed a little bit at a time, see how it reacts. Trying not to, get too much air in there either, by over squeezing. Just gently dropping it in. Later I graduate to this larger size dropper, a plastic one I really prefer, and I even cut the tip off with a little razor knife just so it has a little bigger opening. Even though the food is fine, it still tends to clog up a little bit. Now I typically like to wipe this off before I feed it, but with the camera in one hand I didn't wipe it off. But yeah, every time I do that I typically kind of wipe it clean before I stick it in its mouth, because you want to avoid getting too much messiness on the poor little bird, and if you do get messiness, try to clean it off very gently with a wet rag, very gently. Just, always want to try to keep the bird clean, and its little beak. And I found that he or she, I'm not sure, I still never knew, it liked when I cleaned its little beak with a rag. It really did. It was, just, I guess, I don't know, maybe the parents, groom them too, so it was like a little bonding moment. Here I eventually would just cover the area with paper towels or napkins, and it made it very easy to keep it tidy. It's very important to keep them tidy, just like the mother does, every time she feeds. Usually when you feed, they poop. It's just like, there's only so much room in this little creature. And so yeah, as soon as they poop, you want to remove it. Of course, when you go to sleep at night, Just gonna be a little more. Now we're feeding outside, and I really like to keep the bird outside in the day, and of course I had to keep my cat inside. That was the hardest part, you know. She was really upset with me, but it was worth it, you know. It was just a couple weeks, and I had to get her a litter box because usually she goes in and out. But yeah, it's important to keep them outside as much as possible on a tree branch, or just keep them in contact with their parents, you know, and their siblings. And just as soon as it's ready to make its move, it'll make its move, you know, or the parents will help out as much as possible. Here I fed a little bit of air, and I'm actually burping. I'm gently burping the bird, like you would a baby. And I don't know. It just seemed, here I'm cleaning its beak a little bit, just. But, yeah, this bird, this is about day 5. In all, I would spend 18 days with this bird. And so yeah, this is still pretty early now. And here I'm setting it outside, and its little sibling has come. So its little sibling is the one in the back, and in the front is this little bird that I'm raising. So the little siblings are already flying around now. This is what the stage they call fledgling. So they're all out of the nest, and the mother is feeding this one a little bit, which is also an important reason to keep it outside as much as possible in a safe area where you can watch it. You can see even here I prop the camera up against the screen of the window. And yeah, here comes Mother. And Mother's now going to try to feed little baby here. And it's not hungry. Then it comes over here and tries to feed the one that and it wasn't hungry. And just kind of in the middle of the day, and she probably went to another one of the siblings to feed. So that's a really good sign, you know. And here I'm still feeding it. Here I came out and gave it a little shot, but then I tried to give it as much independence and, you know, like it would in the wild, you know. The babies kind of have that independence, and it's important because you want them to bond with their parents as much as possible. But you can see here now it's flying a lot better. It's coming to my back door for food. So I go out and I feed it, and we've moved on to crickets now. I've got a little cricket there and a forceps, and he'll fly down and grab it. And you want to make it a little hard at this stage, just like the mom would. You don't want to just make it easy. You want them to, you want to tease them a little bit and make them fly for it, and make them, you know, tug on it a little bit. Really important. But we're getting really close now to parting ways at this point. It still wants to come, but it's sleeping outside now. It's not sleeping indoors. But I'm still feeding it, and it still wants to be fed. Eventually there'll be a point where it's not going to want to be fed. Flying and independence, almost teenage years, which is only about 2 weeks for this little bird. This bird in particular is a kingbird. They say the kingbird is a slow developer because they do most of their hunting in the air. They're flycatchers, dragonflies, and anything that flies, creatures. They're also very fierce little birds. I mean, the parents will protect against hawks and all predators. Even me, as I would walk by, they were very good at intimidating me and my cat and my dog. They make this little snapping sound with their bill, like a clapping, and it really gets your attention and gets you out of the way. So now we're feeding a cricket again. and it's really getting comfortable flying around, but only for short distances. I can see the siblings are going for much longer flies now with the parents. And this one is a little delayed. I have a little perch that I built for it. And it keeps it up high, away from the cat. But at this stage, I'm almost not worried about the cat. It really can fly well, and it kind of zigzags, and we go back and forth. When they're really young, you're feeding every 20 minutes, the first, I don't know, up to 5 days. And then it turns into every hour and every couple hours. And that's kind of how you know their development is pretty soon eating will become less and less important. But we're not quite there yet. I built this little perch for it, and it's nice. It's allowed, many of the family members to come land on this perch, and it kind of keeps it in the open. But you can see it decides to go where it wants now too. There's really very little controlling it at this point. And of course it's more just about keeping it safe and feeding it a little when it wants, just testing it. We're definitely on the crickets at this point. I'm trying to keep it more closer to what the siblings would be eating. But it's pretty difficult now to control the bird, and I feel like any intervention on my part at this point is only hindering the bird, which is actually really a really difficult thing to deal with. I've grown really attached to the bird, and I think the bird has grown really attached to me, and yet really I have to start allowing this process of the parents taking over, and I have to want the bird to want to go to the parents, which means that I have to be a little bit more removed and detached. And that's kind of happening naturally, and I think that's a natural aspect of life. I think that's why, we've been created, we've been programmed in this way, and the teenager is kind of rebellious and kind of begins to get annoyed with its parent. And these little birds grow so fast, that happened within days. Within days, it went from dependent child to independent teenager, and almost being annoyed with me, which I realized was very important, was very, very important to its ability to, live a wild and free life, and not a dependent on man, or even its parent. Its parents will go through the same thing. They'll also remove themselves. But these birds actually migrate to, it depends. If they're on the east, if they're more in the east, then they migrate to Florida in the winter. And these ones, the western kingbird, will migrate to Baja, Mexico. And so it's very important. I mean, the area that I live here in the Rockies can get minus 30 degrees. And though there are birds that hang out around here in the winter in minus 30 degrees, even little ones, these ones don't. They are migrators. So I felt it real important that all this work out, and it gets its bond back with its family, and is able to fly to Mexico for the winter, which, we still have like 2 or 3 or 4 months till then, but you know, it has a lot of learning. And really all I could do is just get it fed, get it strong, and there reached a point actually where we would go on walks with my dog, and the bird would come and follow. And but I think that was about the most that I could do. You know, little short flies, and after that, it was going to have to learn, you know, everything with its parents and its siblings, which it is now. It is. It's been well. This whole thing started. Let's see, July 7th. And July 25th, so about 18 days later, and today we're the 27th, and it's flying around with its parents and siblings and hunting. There's a cornfield next to me, and it seems to be spending a lot of time over there. And it still peeps to me, it still comes, but it doesn't land on my shoulder like it used to, and it definitely is acting a lot more wild now. And it's sad, it's very sad, but I'm very happy too. That was the best case scenario that could happen with this little bird, is it would get back on track again. And yeah, it was a beautiful experience, and it was actually the first success I've ever had raising a baby bird. And here we are going on a little walk with the dog, and I have a little chunk of land, not too big, about 20 acres, and we're just going on a little fly right now. And I coax it to the next little tree or next little branch, and the dog is really good too. I think the bird kind of follows the dog. And always has. I think, you know, it was part of this raising experience. He was kind of this motherly background figure.
What a good little munchkin.
And it was really fun. It was. I mean, a part of me would have loved to, you know, have this little bird as a pet, but that wasn't right. You know, it didn't need to be a pet. Its home was right here. And it had everything it needed to live a normal life. If anything, it had a very special life. It had a little taste of something really different, a little experience with man, dog, and cat, and now it's going to have a wild, natural life too. And not to mention, every year they come back. They're migrators. They come back to their home grounds. And so it'll be really interesting to see if I see this bird next year. When I was raising it, it usually has a very yellow breast, but its breast wasn't very yellow. I think because of the diet I was feeding it. Within days of it getting out in the wild with its parents again, flying around with them, it has its beautiful yellow breast. I mean, brilliant. And I have some more. I have a lot of pictures. I just kind of had to start with something, but I'll definitely post more videos. And I just kind of generally wanted to get something up right now. There he is, just flying around, just having a good old time, zigzagging. But yeah, post your comments and your experiences. I hope this helped in some way, and I hope your baby bird raising experience goes well, and stay tuned for more. Definitely keep you guys up to date.
Come here.
Thanks so much for watching.
Come on. Come here, little piggy. Woohoo! Woohoo! You're so good. Yes, you're so